I am the patriarch of House Thorn. My time is running out. My intention was simple. Select a successor from the younger generation to inherit my mantle and the secrets of our bloodline. I never expected that on the day of the inheritance ceremony, a fraud, a young man with absolutely no blood relation to me, would step forward, bow respectfully, and call me patriarch, demanding the legacy. My rage was instantaneous. I questioned the family elders, expecting outrage, but instead found a united front of deceit. They denied the truth, practically forcing me to acknowledge this unknown imposter. Excellent, truly excellent. Do they think that because I am dying, I can no longer lift a god-killer artifact? Welcome, patriarch, from your seclusion. Below Mount Sterling, the sanctuary gates groaned open. Ethereal mists and auspicious clouds swirled as the thunderous chant echoed from the valley floor, reverberating through the peaks. Under the gaze of hundreds of direct descendants of House Thorn, I walked slowly out of the sanctum. I looked at the breathtaking view of the Colorado Rockies, but released a heavy, weary sigh. As the patriarch, I still possessed the appearance of a young man, but I was 8,000 years old. My lifespan was at its end. This final seclusion was a desperate gamble, a last attempt to break through before death claimed me. Unfortunately, I failed. The legendary Ascendant Realm remained a flower viewed through fog, visible, yet untouchable. Now, I likely had only a year left to live. So be it. Even if I broke through, death is inevitable eventually. Who truly gains eternal life? To have lived 8,000 years is already a fortune few dare to dream of. In this last year, I would nurture the clan and leave my legacy. Suppressing my melancholy, I looked at the bowing descendants of House Thorn and spoke calmly. Rise. Where is Julian? Let him step forward. Julian Thorn was the most gifted child the family had seen in a millennium, born with the sovereign spark, a metaphysical anomaly granting immense power. 30 years ago, before he was even born, I had selected him as my heir. I wonder how much he had grown. Perhaps he could see the scenery of the Ascendant Realm that I could never reach. As my voice faded, a ripple moved through the crowd. They parted to form a path. A young man in extravagant white robes, encouraged by the elders, walked briskly forward. He was handsome, though his face held an unnatural pallor, and a domineering aura unique to the sovereign spark radiated from his body. He stood firm, bowed, and spoke with performative submissiveness. Descendant Caleb Thorn pays respects to the patriarch. Congratulations on your return. I stared at him for a long time, then suddenly smiled. You are Julian? The young man's body gave an imperceptible shudder. He looked up, forcing a confused and reverent expression onto his face. Patriarch, naturally, I am Julian. Beside him, Marcus Thorn, the current head of House Thorn, rushed forward with an ingratiating smile. Patriarch, you have been in seclusion for 30 years. Julian hadn't been born when you left. It is only reasonable that he feels unfamiliar to you. Indeed, another elder stepped forward. The aura of the sovereign spark cannot be faked. The child is pure of heart and dedicated to the path of magic. Given time, patriarch, you will surely come to love him. Even my own brother, Silas, the second ancestor, whose strength was second only to mine and who was charged with guarding the family, laughed. Brother, have you been in seclusion so long you don't recognize your own bloodline? A seedling with a natural sovereign spark is rare even for our house. Do you think I would stand by and watch our genius be swapped? I slowly closed my eyes, then snapped them open. In that instant, the silence on Mount Sterling was absolute. I unleashed the full pressure of a paragon, a quasi-ascendant. It crashed down like the collapsing sky. Thud thud. Those with weaker cultivation dropped to their knees instantly, blood trickling from their noses and mouths. Marcus and the elders managed to remain standing, though their faces turned blue, their internal energy stagnating under the crushing weight. The white-robed youth, Caleb, trembled violently, nearly flattened against the stone. I will ask one more time. My voice was glacial, every word detonating like thunder. Who are you? The youth was drenched in cold sweat, struggling to open his mouth. Patriarch, I really am. Worthless trash. I swung my hand. Bang. The youth didn't even have time to grunt. He was launched backward like a kite with a cut string, smashing into a distant cliff face like wet mud, embedding himself deep into the rock. Blood seeped out slowly, followed by faint, agonizing groans. Marcus and the others turned pale, screaming in shock. Patriarch, what are you doing? He is the new hope of House Thorn. Brother, are you mad? Silas roared, raising his hand to heal the youth. Even if you don't recognize the person, surely you recognize the sovereign spark? I scoffed and struck again with a backhand motion. Space twisted. An invisible palm print landed squarely on Silas's chest before he could move. Crunch. Silas's protective holy aura shattered like wet paper. He sprayed a mouthful of blood and staggered backward, crashing through a side pavilion and burying himself in dust and debris. Dead silence. You could hear a pin drop. Every member of House Thorn was scared out of their wits by this sudden thunderclap of rage, shivering in terror. My gaze, sharp as lightning, swept the crowd. My voice chilled the air. Do you all think that because I am old and near death, I could be deceived and mocked at will? This boy possesses the sovereign spark, true, but his bloodline is chaotic and filthy. Does it have even a shred of connection to the imperial blood of House Thorn? Speak. Where's the real Julian? Seeing the strongest among them, Silas, easily incapacitated, Marcus Thorn's face went white as a sheet, sweat soaking his back. Yet he exchanged a glance with the others, gritted his teeth, knelt and persisted. Patriarch, please see clearly. We truly do not know what you mean. Julian has been in the clan since birth. Thousands can testify. How could he be fake? Please, Patriarch, quell your anger. Do not listen to slander and chill the hearts of your people. If his aura conflicts with the sovereign spark, it is because of a cultivation error he suffered recently. Please assume the best. Faced with my interrogation, Marcus and the inner circle insisted the impostor was Julian. Even the wider family members knelt and chimed in, their voices chaotic but eerily synchronized. Yes, Patriarch. Julian is my childhood friend. How could there be a mistake? Every year, Cousin Julian comes to Mount Sterling to await your return. How can you be so ruthless? I looked over them, from the elders to the direct descendants. Beneath their masks of reverence and fear, they were united in a silent, stubborn mutiny against me. What a house of thorn. What a united front of filth. Excellent. I suddenly threw my head back and laughed, the sound shaking Mount Sterling until the mountains groaned and the auspicious cloud disintegrated. I must say, your methods of inverting black and white are extraordinary. But you forgot one thing. Years ago, I asked the Oracle to cast a divination for me. He said my chance to break through to the Ascendant realm lay with a younger generation. Therefore, since that day, whenever a direct blood descendant of House Thorn is born, I secretly plant a unique soul sigil deep within their psyche. This sigil is bound to your lives. Only an Ascendant can detect it. Only I can touch it, especially Julian. Before my seclusion, I personally planted a sigil in his soul and nurtured his sovereign spark with my own essence blood. Since you insist he is Julian, tell me, where's the imperial blood sigil I planted in his soul? Are you trying to tell me that a piece of trash at the Sanctum tier, suffering a mere cultivation mishap, could completely erase a sigil planted by a peak paragon at the cost of his own heart's blood? Do you really think? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, that just because I am dying, I cannot lift the blade, cannot kill, and must allow you animals to play me for a fool. The silence that followed was absolute. Faces turned the color of ash. A few weaker elders collapsed, trembling uncontrollably, the stench of urine wafting from their robes. But having gone this far, how could they retract their lie? They could only kneel, shivering, heads pressed to the floor. Silent now. I sneer at the sweating crowd. Silence is useless. Today, anyone who dare deceive me, none shall escape. With a thought, a brilliant golden sigil appeared on the bodies of every direct descendant present, radiating a faint imperial pressure. Even the clan head, Marcus, was no exception. To me, everyone except Silas was a junior. These sigils, originally meant to protect their souls from extinction, now transformed into executioner's marks. No, Patriarch, mercy. Patriarch, we were wrong. Spare us. Sensing the destructive aura from the sigils, the weaker-willed elders broke down, slamming their heads against the ground until their foreheads were bloody pulp. Marcus and the saint-level experts, realizing the game was up, turned savage. They burned their blood essence, tearing open space to flee 1,000 miles away. Too late. You use outsiders to trick me, and only beg when caught. Stupid and vicious. I reached out and clenched my hand. The void collapsed. Marcus, who had fled hundreds of miles, was dragged back by an invisible force and slammed into the ground. The golden sigils turned into living thorns, burrowing into his flesh, tearing at his soul. Ah, Patriarch, mercy, mercy. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Marcus Thorne screamed a sound that didn't belong to a human. The dignified head of House Thorne rolled in the dirt like a maggot, bloodied and broken. The sigil devoured him, shredding and burning his soul inch by inch. He endured the ultimate agony, but was denied the release of death. Finally, the sigil consumed him entirely, wrapping his memories and origin essence into a stream of light that returned to my palm. The entire sordid history of House Thorne's betrayal played out before my eyes with crystal clarity. 30 years ago, the real Julian was born. The heavens displayed phenomenons. The sovereign spark shone brightly, destined to illuminate the ages. However, Silas, my own brother, guarding the delivery room, succumbed to greed. He secretly swapped the infant with another baby born at the exact same moment. But he didn't stop there. He cruelly extracted the natural sovereign spark from the infant Julian and, using a forbidden technique, grafted it into the impostor's body. Several high-ranking elders tacitly approved, working together to set up a deception array to mask the heavenly signs and blind my perception. As for the real Julian, robbed of his birthright, gravely wounded, barely a newborn, they viewed him as a liability. They threw him into the nether rift, abandoning him to an unknown fate. Boom! Boundless rage erupted from the depths of my soul. The terrifying pressure of a paragon swept out uncontrollably, making the earth tremble and whine. How vicious must a heart be? How stupid a mind, to carve the bone from one's own kin to nurture a stranger. Every elder who appeared in the memory fragments now knelt, pale and catatonic with fear. Patriarch, the clan head ordered us. We had no choice. Patriarch, I will atone. Give me a chance. White-haired old men crawled forward on their knees, begging. Good, very good. My eyes were dead, devoid of warmth. Digging out your own family's bone to raise an outsider? You fools, you treacherous wretches. Death is too kind for you. I triggered the bloodline execution. Can extinction. The golden sigils crawled up their faces, tearing flesh and soul. Screams echoed through the valley, unceasing. In the void, invisible threads of causality vibrated violently. Far away, deep within the family estates, explosions and cries of despair rang out. The direct relatives of these traitors, anyone who knew and did nothing, were tracked by the invisible force of karma. Their bodies and souls collapsed into dust instantly. In the blink of an eye, the bustling Mount Sterling was a graveyard. Only a few innocent bystanders who knew nothing remained, shivering in shock, along with Silas, who was buried in the ruins, and the dying fake in the cliff face. I stepped to the cliff, 5 fingers forming a hook, and dragged the limp, dying youth out like a dead dog. I glanced at the survivors. Clean this up. Await my return. I tore open the fabric of space and stepped into the chaotic currents of the void. My destination was the absolute dead zone that had swallowed the true hope of my house, the Nether Rift. Even in that hellscape, with my sigil protecting his soul, Julian might still be alive. The void split, and I stepped out 10,000 miles away. The imposter in my hand wheezed in agony as the spatial travel shattered his remaining meridians, but I ignored him. The air of the Nether Rift hit me, a mix of rot, despair, and dark necrotic energy. Using the stolen memories, I pinpointed the location where he was abandoned. I expanded my senses, hunting for the faintest trace of my own magic. I found it, a village, or the ruins of one. In front of it stood a willow tree, bearing a dim, golden rune almost entirely obscured by necrotic filth. It was the life-saving sigil I had planted 30 years ago. It was on the verge of collapse, its spirituality nearly gone, yet it remembered its duty. Fearing it would become corrupted and harm its charge, it had detached itself, clinging to the tree, burning its last shreds of power to buy the child one more breath of life. It flickered like a candle in a gale, stubbornly guarding the village behind it. I waved my hand, dispersing the black fog. The sight that revealed itself made my heart seize. Ramshackle huts. Absolute silence. Almost no sign of life. Inside a freezing, drafty shack, a skeletal figure curled in a ball. His clothes were rags fused with blackened, dry blood. His body was a map of scars, some old, deep enough to show bone, edged with the black-purple of necrotic infection, some fresh, still oozing. His face was gaunt, sunken from decades of pain and starvation. Only the faint rise and fall of his chest proved he was not a corpse. 30 years. For 30 years, the dragon of my house, the bearer of the sovereign spark, the one who should have ruled the 9 heavens, had been rotting here in the dark, enduring the pain of stolen bone and the erosion of darkness. Fury, hot and blinding, threatened to burn away my reason. I forced it down. I crouched, moving with terrified caution, and transferred a wisp of pure, gentle essence into him. The ruined body convulsed, letting out a moan of excruciating pain. He curled tighter, a reflex born of endless torture, as if any touch promised only more suffering. Child, my voice cracked, raspy and trembling. I am here. Perhaps sensing the gentle nature of the power, or a kindness he had never known, he opened his eyes. What eyes they were! They should have been bright, sharp with youth. Now they were muddy, filled with terror, pain, confusion, and a will to live that had been ground down to almost nothing. He looked at me, his gaze unfocused, unable to comprehend my existence. No. Don't. Bone. Taken away. Hurts. His voice was a broken whisper, a mosquito's hum. He wasn't lucid, trapped in a nightmare loop. It was like a dagger through my heart. I reached out a trembling hand and rested it lightly on his dry, matted hair. No more fear, Julian, I said, my voice low and iron-hard. The patriarch is here. No one will bully you again. What you lost, I will take back for you today. For every ounce of pain, I will make them pay 100-fold. Maybe it was the resonance of our bloodline, or the power in my words, but the terror in his eyes receded slightly, replaced by a fragile, instinctual reliance. He shifted closer to the warmth, like a wounded animal. That tiny gesture moved me more than the worship of thousands. I lifted him with the utmost care, wrapping him in soft energy to isolate him from the rot. Then my cold gaze fell on the dying impostor in my other hand. Without hesitation, I used my fingers as a scalpel and sliced open his chest. A scream that shredded the throat rang through the rift. I remained expressionless. With surgical precision, I extracted the sovereign spark that never belonged to him. The fake Julian's body deflated rapidly, his life force nearly extinguished. Using my own Paragon blood as a catalyst, I carefully grafted the glowing bone back into the shattered chest of the true Julian. Sensing its true master, the sovereign spark hummed with joy. It emitted a soft light, actively fusing with Julian's blood and marrow. Boundless vitality surged from the bone, nourishing his dried meridians and repairing his ruined flesh. A faint flush of color returned to his pale face. His breathing deepened. I watched, a complex mix of warmth and bitterness filling my chest. It wasn't a happy ending yet, but the redemption had begun. However, the quiet did not last. Brother, stop. You are inviting catastrophe. A roar of panic and anger tore through the sky. Space ripped open, and Silas, covered in blood and weak from his injuries, stumbled out. He had paid a heavy price to travel here, so quickly. He stared with wild eyes at Julian, who was recovering, and the desiccated husk of the fake. His face went gray. You actually cut out the sovereign spark. Silas shook, whether from fear or rage. Quick, put it back, or House Thorn is finished. There will be no place for us in the heavens or earth. I stood slowly, shielding Julian behind me. I looked at the brother I had once trusted with my life. Oh, catastrophe? Because of this thief who stole my bloodline. He is not a thief. He is the youngest son of the Lord of the Exclusion Zone. Silas practically screamed the words, his eyes wide with a desperate terror. The Abyssal Lord planted a soul imprint in him long ago. If the boy dies, that supreme entity will know instantly. The darkness is coming, and House Thorn will be the first to be erased from existence. Quick, while there's still time, return the spark. The Exclusion Zone. I sneered, cutting him off. My eyes held nothing but contempt. So that's it. To curry favor with the Abyss and extend your own life, you mutilated your own kin, stripped him of the sovereign spark, and threw the true hope of our family into this hell to rot. Some second ancestor you are. Some brother. You, Silas trembled, cowed by my killing intent. So what if I did? That is the Abyssal Lord, a true ancient supreme. His rage is not something we can survive. Brother, you are strong, a paragon, but your blood is decaying. Your time is up. What will you use to fight a fully awakened supreme? It is better to yield, raise this child of the zone, care for him, and perhaps we can trade his safety for an immortality herb. It could extend your life, and by House Thorn, 10,000 years of peace. That is the only rational choice. My time is up. I threw my head back and laughed, a sound of pure, reckless freedom. It is precisely because I am dying that I fear nothing. If he dares come, I will summon the Crimson Dragon Halberd, burn the last year of my life, and drag him to hell with me. My old life for a Forbidden Zone Supreme? To clear the path for the true dragon, that is a trade I will make. To wag your tail and beg for an herb, to willingly become a dog? Only a spineless coward like you could conceive of such disgrace. You're mad. Completely mad. Silas looked horrified. He turned to tear open space and flee. I scanned the desolate nether rift. The inner circle who deceived me are dead. The innocent branch families I will protect. Now it's your turn. Stay here. My eyes hardened. I wasted no more words. I raised my hand and struck. This palm contained the peaked rage of a paragon. Laws woven into the attack locked down the sky and earth. No. Silas fought back desperately, throwing out defensive artifacts. Against me, in my fury, they were toys. The palm fell. Artifacts shattered. Light was extinguished. The second strongest of House Thorn, the once guardian turned traitor, was crushed into a mist of blood along with his fear and ambition. His soul was obliterated. I withdrew my hand indifferently, as if I had swatted a fly. Then I stomped down on the gasping impostor, Caleb. Sensing the fatal blow, the unconscious Caleb's eyes snapped open. The pupils split, ocular duality. At the same moment, a terrifying will, impossible to describe, crossed infinite space and slammed into Caleb's body. The sky turned colorless. The sun vanished. The entire nether rift shook as the laws of reality groaned. It was as if a demon god, asleep for eons, had opened a cold eye in the distant exclusion zone and locked onto this location. "Who dares kill my son?" The voice was low, ancient, filled with limitless murder and authority. It exploded like a billion thunderclaps. I stood straight as a pine, my paragon aura flaring to create a domain of resistance within the crushing pressure. "It is your father, the patriarch of House Thorn, Elias Thorn." My voice rang like a bell, piercing the pressure to answer the will directly. The void gaze is an invincible path on its own. Why did he need to steal a sovereign spark? You taught your son poorly, allowed him to commit atrocities and theft. He deserves this retribution. You old ghost. You have the face to manifest your will here. Oomph. The void gaze is an invincible path, but an extra bone is an extra road. Elias, I thought you were a smart man. I thought you understood power. The Supreme's voice dripped with disdain. I will give you one last chance. Hand over the sovereign spark. Serve my son as your master. If you perform well, I might show mercy and grant you an immortality herb. If you persist in error, I will unleash the darkness and wash your house in blood. The Lord of the Exclusion Zone assumed he knew men like me. He had seen enough dying patriarchs kneel for a chance to live forever. In the face of absolute death, dignity usually crumbled. Good, good. What an arrogant, abyssal lord. I laughed in extreme anger. Someone who didn't know better would think you were a living emperor ruling the universe. You are nothing but an old corpse hiding in a coffin, surviving on the blood of the living. You dare lecture me? Since you are so eager to be buried with your trash son, open your dog eyes and watch. Prepare to taste the edge of my house's God-killer artifact. I didn't waste another second. I flipped my hand and struck. My imperial power surged, instantly shattering the projection of the supreme will. The vessel, Caleb's broken body, disintegrated into ash, completely annihilated. Back at House Thorn, I moved with lightning speed. I placed Julian, still in a coma, but stable, in the deepest part of my meditation cave, channeling the spiritual ley lines to nourish his body. I then promoted several branch family members, those who had been suppressed by the main line but possessed resilience and talent, to restructure the power core of the house. With the family secured, I did not linger. I took a step and teleported directly to the place that made the 9 heavens and 10 earths tremble, the perimeter of the exclusion zone. Deadly energy rolled out from the depths of the zone, turning the sky black for 1,000,000 miles. The pressure was a physical tsunami, signaling the awakening of a world-ending demon. Elias Thorn. A roar of absolute fury erupted from the center of the zone. I didn't come for you, yet you come to my door to die. God-killer artifact, come. I ignored the rolling death fog. I threw my head back and howled, my voice shaking the universe, calling to the foundation buried deep in the Thorn ancestral grounds. Boom! From the direction of the Thorn estate, a beam of crimson gold light tore through the atmosphere. An aura that suppressed all living things, an imperial presence, flooded the world. A crimson halberd, engraved with ancient chaotic runes and wrapped in the phantom of a blood dragon, shattered space and appeared instantly in my hand. The moment I grasped the crimson dragon halberd, the dried-up blood in my veins ignited like a supernova. My life force began to burn at a frantic speed. Extreme sublimation. I hesitated at nothing. I play my final card. My youthful appearance withered instantly. Wrinkles carved deep valleys into my face. My hair turned ash white. But my aura skyrocketed, smashing through the Paragon barrier, touching that supreme domain, if only for a moment. I stroked the humming halberd, pouring my life essence, my understanding of the Tao, and my hopes for the future into it. Hum! The halberd awoke completely. A crimson dragon's soul roared, shaking the heavens. It was as if the ancient emperor of House Thorn had returned across the eons. Kill. I swung the weapon. Simple. Direct. A crimson edge, capable of splitting heaven and earth, slashed upward, ignoring space and time, aiming straight for the entity manifesting from the death fog. Rumble. The collision erased sound. Laws snap. Crack. In a single exchange, amidst a roar of shock and pain, half of the Abyssal Lord's body was sheared off by my burning life and the full might of the Emperor weapon. But I paid a terrible price. My body cracked like porcelain. My lifespan flowed away like a bursting dam. My aura plummeted. However, on the edge of death, I realized something. The bloodlines and soul power I had absorbed from the traitors via the sigils were being refined by the pressure of the battle. The impurities burned away, merging perfectly with my foundation. A sensation of clarity washed over me. The bottleneck that had trapped me at the peak of the Paragon realm for thousands of years loosened. Ahead, the void twisted. A terrifying figure wrapped in black mist was reforming. The Abyssal Lord panicked. He wanted to run. Even though he was strong, Elias Thorn was fighting to die. The Lord had cut his own cultivation to survive the ages. He was terrified of death. In the past, he held the immortality herbs, and countless paragons and saints knelt before him, begging. He was used to being a god. He never imagined a paragon would burn everything, soul, life, future, to wield a fully awakened god-killer artifact with such devastating lethality. The scent of death was thicker than it had been eons ago when he first retreated into the abyss. He knew that if he took another hit like that, he would fall. He would cease to exist. I looked at the fleeing Supreme and felt the breakthrough point within me. My eyes blazed with war fire and insane hope. So that is it. That is it. The Oracle's prophecy. When the Emperor's road is cut, look to your kin. The true meaning was here. I abandoned all defense. I ignited the very last sparks of my life fire and launched myself at the fleeing darkness. So what if you are a Supreme of the Zone? Today you are my whetstone. I use this broken body as kindling to break and then stand. If I fail, I die, worthy of my ancestors. If I succeed, I took a deep breath, facing the monstrous shadow of the Abyssal Lord, and issued a declaration that shook the ages. Then I, Elias Thorn, shall be the first emperor of this era. One was an ancient supreme who had severed his own path to hide in the dark. The other was a paragon burning his life, wielding a god-killer, forcing open the door to divinity with suicidal resolve. They fought from the edge of the exclusion zone to the depths of the stars, and back to the skies above the nether rift. The collision of the halberd and the supreme laws pulverized stars and ground the universal order to dust. In a battle where life was the only chip, the one who feared death was doomed. No, Elias, stop. Even if you ascend, your lifespan is limited. I will give you the herb. We can't have peace. The Abyssal Lord screamed, trying to bargain. My answer was a strike that poured everything I was into a single point of light. The Crimson Dragon halberd slashed across the cosmos, decapitating the dark entity that had plagued the world for eras. Boom! The moment he perished, the universal laws surged like a visible, seven-colored flood from the 9 heavens and 10 earths, rushing into my crumbling body. The halberd hummed with joy, acting as a lightning rod to channel this ocean of power into me. My body began to glow. The cracks healed instantly. My wrinkles smoothed, my white hair turned raven black. An aura that commanded the universe exploded from my core, sweeping across the 4 corners of the world. I stood alone in the void, trampling the remains of the Abyssal Lord, bathed in the worship of the universal laws. Across the realms, every living being, regardless of power or location, felt it in their souls. They fell to their knees, trembling. They knew an ascendant had been born. Story complete.